Welcome back, everybody. This episode of the Open Concept Podcast, where we are breaking down those unnecessary walls and barriers that stand in the way of greatness. Our guest today joining us all the way from sunny Phoenix. It is hot there. We were talking offline. It sounds like it is smoking hot. So he's taking some time out to chat with us today, which is awesome. Casey Strunk, president of Strunk Insurance and Strunk HR. He helps employers build smarter employee benefits and HR strategies from group health insurance, renewals, benefits consulting, and employer advisory. And I've been watching your stuff on Instagram and online, man. It sounds like you. One thing I love about this podcast, before we get into it, is just it doesn't matter what industry you're in. When I talk to people that are really passionate about what they're doing, like they're typically involved in their business for a reason. And it can be whether it's insurance, whether it's construction, whether it's financial planning, whether it's real estate investing. Like, it doesn't really matter what the industry is. When I'm talking to people here, like they're passionate about what they do. And it's definitely a common thread amongst our guests. Anyways, Casey, welcome to the show. It's great to connect, brother. How are you?
I'm good, other than it is about 110 here in Phoenix today, but we're blessed to be grinding away on a Monday, and I appreciate you having me on.
Dude, yes. Okay, so you've jumped into this world of insurance. Give people some background. How long have you been in business now? What does that look like? Give us a bit of a background before we get into it.
So we have been in business for 44 years. I'm only 44 years old, so I didn't start the agency. I am a second generation business owner. Greg Strunk, my father, founded our agency back in 1982, and I joined up with my father back in August of about 04. So 22 years for me inside this business. I purchased the agency from him a little over 8 years ago. And so we have a long history of serving business owners, not only in the Southwest, but across the country for their employee benefit and human capital needs.
Is he still around? Is he still in the picture? Is he still working, or is he fully
Yeah,
retired?
my dad he just celebrated his 75th birthday. I say that he likes to come in a couple days a week just to write in his day planner and pay his bills and watch the news to feel like he's got a place to go. So it's awesome.
I think
we
it's
get to chat
important,
and catch up.
Yeah, I think that's important. I keep saying if I'm blessed enough to stay healthy until I'm 80, I thoroughly enjoy what I'm doing. I hope that I can continue to work. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's important to find something to really, really keep you going at that age. If you're not, otherwise you can only spend so much time sitting on the beach or on the golf course personally before, you start going a little bananas. But maybe that'll perspective will change a bit, but good for him, man.
Yeah. I think as entrepreneurs, we're so focused on, can we make enough? What does an exit look like? Are we going to be secure? But what gets lost in that is, well, what is my purpose going to be afterwards? And so to your point, I don't know. I'm very fulfilled coming to work and doing the work that I get to do every day. And you can only golf so much, as you say.
Yeah. Well, legacy businesses, like, let's talk about that for a second, because I talk to a lot of people that do have family businesses, and their parents owned a company and they've gotten involved with it. It wasn't always their first choice, but they kind of just landed there and they've fallen in love with it. And I know people that have been on the other end of it, where they started working in the company or the family business. They thought like this was going to be the trajectory that they were going to go. They were going to take over, and then just decided they really didn't want to have anything to do with the business. When you were looking at joining the family business early on, was this something that you always knew that you were going to do? Was this the idea that you were going to take over the business, or did you have other plans?
The opportunity was extended to me from an early age that, this business is going to be here. I would love for you to come work in this business. I attended Northwestern University. I played golf there for 4 years. Golf was a huge passion of mine, but ultimately made a decision like, hey, I don't know if I'm good enough. I don't know if I'm going to work hard enough. I don't think I'm going to give professional golf a shot. And the idea was, why don't I join my father's business and leverage all these relationships that I had created through golf with business owners since the age of about 12 here in the Valley. So he gave me a desk and basically said, go try to sell something. You know, I didn't have a lot of other options that gave me that type of opportunity. I don't know that it was ever clear that I would be able to run the business, that I would buy the business, that I would grow into that type of leader and man. But at some point it did. And then we navigated what that looked like. As it relates to falling in love with the business, I think it's all a bit of a game that you have to fall in love with. So whether you're in the trades or whether you're giving advice or financial services or whatever it is, I think the joy comes from building better systems, hiring better people, giving your employees a great life, and really just winning at the highest level across the board. That's what I fell in love with. Insurance is just a vehicle for it. So
Yeah, very much. The golf is interesting though. I relate golf to business a lot because it's one of those games like just as soon as you think your backswing works, just as soon as you think you figured it out, you get out on the fairway, maybe a couple of good shots, and all of a sudden you're like, I have no idea what I'm doing. This is just like back to the drawing board, back to the range, back to the buckets. Like you have to stay consistent if you're gonna get good at it. It's something that you can't get good at fast, right? And there's always iterations, there's always variables. There's whether it's going to be rain, wind. They haven't cut the grass to the right length just in time, or like sometimes the greens are fast, sometimes the greens are slow. But I think like golf is a beautiful analogy for a lot of what we see in business, and forces you to I think be very patient. I don't know. That's certainly my experience with golf.
yeah, I've never sort of drawn that analogy, but it couldn't be more true, Brandon, in that there are so many variables and the variables are always changing. And then, all sports are mental, but I think golf is one of the most mental sports out there when it's you versus you or you versus a golf course. And we saw it just this past weekend with a big lead getting blown on the PGA Tour from one of the best players in the world. It is easy to let doubt creep in. What was working a minute ago is no longer working, and you have to stop and you have to reset. And to your point, being patient and just showing up every single day and putting the work in and hoping that that pays off in the long term. I've been on a pretty big fitness journey over the last 5 years, and I think I've fallen in love with that because the inputs are so simple and the results are so noticeable right away. And I say all the time, man, I wish business was as easy as monitoring my diet and strength training because those results come so quickly comparatively.
It's funny because people generally know when it comes to fitness, they know what they need to do, right? If they want to lose weight, get more fit, it's eat healthier food, likely less of it, and move your body more. Lift things and move around, right? And if you can, like, the inputs don't have to be complicated, but people have a tendency of making it really complicated, or thinking like, you know what, I'm gonna start this tomorrow, I'm gonna start this next week, this is, I'm gonna get through this sort of season before I do the things that I need to do anyways, and then it just prolongs the output, right? But it fundamentally is really easy, in the same way that business is easy on paper when you look at it and you say, get a product or service that people are going to want and sell that to those people, and then hire great people to help you grow and scale and do that and help them fall in love with it. Like the inputs are relatively easy in theory, but there's a lot of nuances to it. There's a lot of complications that come up, right? It's very much easier said than done.
Well, yeah, and just all those
The with the
Mike.
fitness.
Sorry, go ahead, Brandon.
No, all good, all good, all good. You go.
Oh, I was just going to say all those micro decisions in either one of those scenarios that maybe you don't think add up. surely dictate your outcomes over time.
100%, 100%. The insurance world, right? You've gotten into this. What's one thing that you wish people knew about insurance that they don't? Like if you could scream something from the rooftops, the billboard, like put it up on a billboard in a few words, like a big message that's overarching and you just wish would really land with people, what would that be? Like what is it that people don't understand about insurance? Is it that not every insurance company is the same? Is it that your broker needs to be really on top of it and like how do you find a best broker? But like what do you really want the people out there in the world to know about what it is that you do?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people view insurance as this really complex animal, and it's hard to understand, and they're not sure how to control their costs, and they think that it's a predatory environment, and some of that's probably true in a lot of the business atmospheres across the country. But I think what I would tell people is that they have more control than they think they do in terms of their long term costs, the decisions that they can make to control those costs, and run healthier and happier companies. We just don't run into that many companies that really attack health insurance in the same way that they might their workers' compensation insurance. Man, have they set out on a mission to create the safest work environment and the safest job sites and set up all these guardrails to make sure, that they don't have injuries and don't avoid a claim. But we don't see a lot of people that do that on the health insurance side. We see a lot of bagels and donuts in the break rooms. We don't see employers encouraging movement. We don't see employers going down the path of self-funding and putting a little friction in front of employees and the decisions that they make. So there are things that people can do to control costs, and it's really not that hard. I think that's the message I'd put out there.
Yeah. Is there a real barrier there? Because to me, insurance makes sense. Like, why would most people not get insurance? Is it a friction thing? Is it simply cost? Like, is it bottom dollar that everybody just thinks I can't find $6,000 or $7,000 or whatever it is to pay for the insurance, so I'm just gonna roll the dice because I can't afford it? Or is it that the industry is making it more complicated to understand what is covered, or why would people stray away from not finding the right insurance policy in the first place?
Yeah, so here in the States, if you're upwards of a certain size, as a function of the Affordable Care Act, you're mandated to provide coverage for employees or you face some fines. But for a lot of the small business owners out there that might be in your audience that have less than 50 full-time employees, I think the two biggest things, the objections that we hear are, I don't know if I can afford this. And I'm not sure if I want to take on the administration of this type of plan. We've already got enough on our plate. We're just trying to run a business over here. I don't know that I can give my employees medical, dental, vision, life, disability, figure out a way for them to consume that product, be educated on it, handle payroll deductions, and then field questions around it. But the reality is, if you find the right broker partner, they should really be taking all of that off your plate, automating it so it's turnkey, and it should operate just like your retirement plan or anything else. It's just a simple payroll deduction that comes out, and everything else is really in our hands. So
Yeah, let's talk about the fitness journey for a bit that you've been on. What is like? What is your regimen? You're a young, healthy looking guy. You're fit. You're strong. What has this journey been like over the last 5 years that you were talking about for you personally? Like, what are you? Are you lifting? You're running? You're rucking? Like I saw, one of your videos. You're out there with the backpack on and the weights on. Like it looks like you're getting it done, man. You look like you should be the guy that's selling people health insurance.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I talk about that all the time. If we're selling health insurance, we should probably be living it. But I think it was 5 years ago, July-ish of 21, I had kind of hit rock bottom. I just realized that I really didn't love the way that I feel, the way that I looked, the way that I was showing up for my family. And I ended up hiring a coach, Ben Brown from Body Systems. He is still working with me today. We just celebrated 5 years working together. And so I just submitted week 256 in terms of the spreadsheets that I get to him every week, where I track my steps, my sleep, my macros, my hydration, my training. And it's a great accountability tool for me to really look at a week or a month to figure out if I'm winning or not. But, really what we focus on is a very high protein diet, strength training 4 days a week, getting 10,000 steps a day, no crazy or intense cardio. And about 3 years ago, I did start what you're referencing, a community that I call Rise and Ruck Phoenix. So once a month, business leaders from around the valley will go out, we'll throw our ruck packs on. I wear a 45-pound pack, and we'll walk 3 miles. We'll walk for about an hour, and then I host coffee for 30 minutes so we can just conversate and catch up afterwards. And really the impetus behind that was I was just so sick of the lunches, the happy hours, the dinners, all of the things that were really setting me back from a goal perspective. But I still wanted to connect with people. I still wanted to have community. And it's been a fun way to create that outside of traditional settings.
I mean, building and starting a community, a bit of a movement, it's a beautiful thing, man. Especially if it involves fitness of any kind. So, congratulations on that. How many people usually come out?
We'll have 10 or 15. I mean, I wish it was more, but it's a big ask for some folks to get out there at 7 a.m. on a Friday morning and put a pack on. But it's a handful of different folks every single time. I continue to get folks who reach out on LinkedIn and Instagram asking for more information. So hopefully we continue to grow it.
Yeah. How much weight do people usually carry when they're rucking at the Rise and Ruck?
So Michael Easter wrote a book called The Comfort Crisis. That was kind of how I got into rucking. But I think the formula is you really don't want to go more than about 25% of your total body weight. But in the military, there were some guys out doing some drills at one of the parks we were at recently. And I said, what's on your back? And they said, yeah, anywhere between like 30 to 50 pounds. So,
yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a lot. Otherwise it really can start to mess with your joints. I was doing it for a while and it was about the same, about 45, 50 pounds walking around with that thing on. I found anything more than that was just like, it just really impacted my knees. I was fine to carry it, but it just started messing with like a few joints if I got it any past that point for like any extended period of time.
Yeah, it starts to become counterproductive at that point.
When you started working with your fitness coach, like tell us what were you doing? What were you weighing? What did that look like before you got onto this journey? And like, how was that shift? Real quick before we get back to the show, if you have heard anything on this podcast that has resonated with you or if it's helped you in any way, appreciate more than anything in the world if you could go hit that subscribe button or leave us a review. It helps us tremendously. I want to go back to being able to continue to serve and do more and more and help out and get bigger and bigger guests on, better and better. The only way that I can do that is with your help. I'm so honored to be here. Let's get back to the show. Appreciate you. Have a wonderful day. Over the last 5 years, you said it was like one of the darker times of your life where you were at a point where you were kind of depressed, right? Probably at a point where you didn't have a lot of energy, probably a lot of like drive to do too much. I've been there myself, but what did that look like for you?
Yeah, I think my relationship with alcohol was not in a good place. I had no awareness of nutrition. I was not strength training. I certainly was not moving enough. And so you do all those things for a period of time and you start to look like a big blob. And so I was, I'm 6'2". I was about 210 pounds at the time. I'm about 205 pounds right now. Body composition was very, very different.
Yeah.
I think in that first 6 to 8 month sort of fat loss phase, when I started working with Ben, we went from 210 pounds all the way down to about 172 pounds. Really got all the fat off. And then, ever since that point in time, 4.5 years ago, we've just been going through these cycles of trying to operate in a surplus, trying to pack on some lean tissue. When you do that, you're obviously going to gain a little bit of body fat. So you go back into a cut at some point in time and then go back into sort of that mass phase. But I did a photo shoot, as weird as that sounds. 2 years ago, I was in the best shape of my life and wanted to document it. And I remember walking out of that photo shoot, I was about 182 pounds. And I said, hey, on my 45th birthday, which is 2 years from now, I want to be at 195 pounds and about 10% body fat. So that was the goal. That's what I'm chasing right now. And I will be there in April of 2027. So
nice. Yeah. I went through a big cut. I got down to about just over 9% body fat. So about 9.5% body fat. And I didn't like that. I was like, it was that initial cut. I also did a photo shoot because I wanted to document it. And I look back there now. I was like, okay, I was ripped, but I also just I just felt too small. And so I've been on that journey. I cut back, I think it was, I don't know, about 16, 17 pounds that I didn't know that I even had to lose. But when you lose it, and you start jumping on the scale because you're kind of building back up, you get to a point where you're like, you've done all this work. So putting another pound on this scale seems a little scary when you start, working that way back up. And I've gone back up about 9 or 10 pounds now. And I'm sitting at about 11.5% body fat currently. But yeah, it's when you start building it back up, I'm going to do another cut here in what day are we at? Yeah. So about 5 weeks coming up here. And just because it's been about a year since I started that last one, just to see the difference. So I'm interested to see the photos from, that I documented 6 weeks from now versus a year from or a year ago, just to see what that lean body fat looks like or that lean body mass.
Well, that's no small feat to just be walking around at 11%, Brandon, before your cut. So good for you.
Appreciate it. Yeah, it's been but it's been a huge journey as well, right? Like same thing. Relationship with alcohol, like I got to be, very careful. I hardly drink at this point, but it was just, way too easy, right? To put back a, handful of IPAs on a Friday night and and on a Wednesday night and go for chicken wings and go for, this and that. And you wake up in the morning and you realize all my energy is just drained. Like you need a nap at 11 o'clock or noon. And that wasn't just random because you had a bad sleep the night before. It was every day. It was amazing how much food actually does control your energy. And when you start tracking it, when you start really like dialing in your macros and you're doing an incredible job of that. If you're documenting it on a spreadsheet every week and having an accountability partner to send that to, man, that's no small feat. So congratulations on your journey, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. I think the only thing I'll say to kind of put a bow on that is, you talk about throwing back a handful of IPAs or whatever else. Yeah. I mean, you come home from work and you might have 2 or 3 IPAs and that's a Tuesday night. And what I found is that if everything is special, nothing is special. And so having a little bit of discipline and really enjoying the moments that are meant to be enjoyed, that's the way to do it. So
I found myself especially during the cut, right? It was 100% compliant. There was nothing. Like I remember it was my daughter's 3rd birthday. It was the first time I'd done a cut. And she was like, we had these cupcakes at her birthday party and she was like giving me one and she wanted me to eat a cupcake. And I was like, no, I couldn't. And she was getting upset because she thought that I didn't like the cupcakes or that she had chosen because she wanted cupcakes. And I had no way to like tell her that it was like to make her comprehend what was going on. And it was just a tough thing. So everyone was there having cupcakes. She wanted me to have one. I just had to say it was like, baby, I love you. I can't do this. And so it was, I mean, she's recently just turned 5 now. And, I talk about that with my wife, but we, at her past birthday, ended up having a cupcake. And I was like, just reliving this story about a week ago. And, it was funny, but man, that's like, at that point, it was like, that was something that almost broke me where I was like, you know what, it's your birthday. I'm going to have this cupcake. But there was a part of me just in the back of my mind where I was like, man, I made it. There's never a good time. You know what I mean? Like there's always something to celebrate. there's always something that's going to come up. And the thing that you let get in the way of that is the thing that is going to be a barrier that you're going to continue to run up against. Same thing in business, right? Like if you have a tough decision to make or a tough conversation to have, there's never really going to be a great time. If you're looking to start a new initiative and you're putting something on your list of things to do, and whether it's to cut something from your business or to move forward a new category of business, whatever that is, or start writing the book or launch the podcast, there's never really a right time. And I think that's what a lot of people get caught up in, is waiting for the right time, right? If we can only get past these next couple of weeks, or we sign this next project, then we're going to have some bandwidth to do it. There's never really that right time to do it. So you just got to jump in there and trust that you're going to figure it out and decide where you're going to draw that line in the sand. And for me, that was a tough thing to do, but I remember that story very clearly.
Well, to your point, I mean, it's so strange that it's human nature. We wait until our back is against the wall to make some of these bigger decisions in our lives, until pain is like evident and right there. And when I went through it earlier this year with the loss of a big client, I was like, all right, we need to make some cuts for the first time in about 8 years from an expense perspective across the board, looking at a number of things. And now I look back and I'm like, man, half of those should have been done 3 years ago. We were just living with it for no apparent reason. So,
yeah. But I mean, it's never easy. There's never a right time to do it. But that's one thing that fitness, I think, is, you talk about a vehicle, right? A vehicle for whether it's going to be self-improvement, self-discipline, vehicle for learning. You can choose whatever vehicle you want, but the lessons from it, I think, go so much deeper when you get into very difficult physical activities or like mental activities, right? Whether it's team sports or it's solo sports like golf or jiu-jitsu. These are things where, like, when you're under pressure, you're showing up anyways. You're doing the thing. And if you can't do it, if you can't count on yourself to do it, then having an accountability partner is one of the best ways to make sure that you're able to stay on track, or just eliminating a lot of the distractions, a lot of the environment. Like in my case, if you're in the health journey, like if there's a box of cookies or my wife brings home, these little chocolate chunk things that always end up in the fridge. If those are there, I just know, like, there's a 90% chance that I'm probably going to eat them. It is going to be a mental battle for me to open up the fridge, to open up the cupboard, to take a look at it. And immediately, like, I'm going back and forth in my mind. I'm staring at it. And there is like a war that goes on in my head as to whether or not I should jump in and do this thing. And I'm telling myself no. And I'm telling myself it's okay. And then you tell yourself, well, you shouldn't be so hard on yourself. And then there's that part of you that's like, shut up, just, fucking do it. Like, you can't eat it. Yeah. Move forward, pass this, close the cupboard. And all of that happens in a flash of like 3 seconds. By the time you open the cupboard and close the cupboard, you've made this decision. And then anyways, it really is this, just eliminating the things in the environment that no longer drive you to this, to this point, is one of the best ways of doing that, I find.
Yeah, 100%. Not just in fitness, but in life. I mean, sort of this idea of elimination, it's undefeated. Life ultimately becomes a lot easier when you get rid of all the distractions and the things that, you feel like you have to say yes to, but have no desire to do. So,
yeah. Can I ask you about the client? I don't need to get into details specifically, but you mentioned you lost a big client, right? What is that? What does that do to a business like yours? Do a lot of insurance companies have these, few enterprise clients where one client moving away or shifting away can really impact revenue for the year, can impact, the business in general? Is that a pretty common thing?
yeah, I think depending upon the size of the shop, it certainly could. I mean, this represented, I don't know, pretty close to 8 or 9% of our overall revenue, which was a hit. For us, it was more about some of the resources that we had taken on to actually win the client. in the first place. And so, yeah, I mean, we had to look in the mirror and say, what do we need? What do we not need? What decisions do we have to make to move forward from here? But in the 8 or 9 years that I've owned the business, I mean, that was probably the largest client that we had written and also the largest loss that we had taken. So,
As an entrepreneur, when you go through something like that, what goes through your mind? How do you look at handling that? Like, what is the conversation that you end up having with your team? What does retrospect look like? Or do you have to go back and find another big client, or like what as a business owner does that process look like? What types of conversations are you having? What's running through your mind? What do you need to pivot to do? Is it like pick up and strap on your bootstraps and just get out there and hit the pavement? Is it a real like sad thing that is just spread company wide? But how do you in a moment of like, we'll call it crisis, but how do you keep team morale up at that point? Like, what are the conversations that are being had?
I mean, for me, it's about controlling what we can control. And so when we lost that client, the conversation I had was, did we let you down in any way? What was your experience like working with us? And the unfortunate reality for us was, their team was like, wow, you guys did such an amazing job. You took great care of us. We've not worked with anybody like this. But it was a political decision that was above some of the relationships that we actually owned. And so, as long as I can look myself and my team in the mirror, knowing that we did a really good job for that client, I just can't mourn for too much longer after that. Um, we have to figure out, what the right moves are going forward. In retrospect, every time something bad happens or something that we perceive as bad happens, I just have to remind myself that, God's plan is always bigger than my plan. We had let a couple people go who maybe weren't performing at the highest level or weren't a great culture fit. It led us to an employee who's one of our best hires in probably the last 5 or 10 years. We've won a couple cases that will probably be with us for a long time. And so, there's a lot of good that came out of that. And that's the lens with which I think you have to view it as a business owner, because, you know, you're going to get kicked in the nuts more days than not, sitting in this seat.
Yeah, no doubt. Do you have any stories that you can share with us? I imagine there's especially down in the States right here, like I mentioned here in Canada, healthcare is it's mandatory. Or I shouldn't say it's mandatory, but it's free healthcare for the most part, right? And I say that loosely because there's a lot of challenges that come along with it, but we are covered, right? And down in the States is very different. You aren't obligated to purchase insurance, right? And most of it is private insurance. And for those that don't purchase insurance, I imagine you've come across some cases where it's been like just a like you said, a real kick in the balls. Like something's probably broken down where it's been a terrible outcome. I had my grandfather, I remember a story that he had told me, or my grandmother had told me. They were flying. He literally had a heart attack and he was flying back. I think they were down in Palm Springs. And on the flight, they had to land down in the States, and he ended up having to go into the hospital there for a couple of days. They had to land the plane, and it ended up costing him. It was like $80,000, something like that, for a minor like checkup, surgery, stay the night in the hospital. But they wouldn't let him fly. They had to land the plane. They didn't, let him get back into the country. And it was just a massive cost because he didn't end up having, traveler's insurance, or health insurance wasn't covered down there. But it was a huge bill. And I remember thinking that, I'm like, my God, like that was for one night or a day and a half of care plus whatever they added up. It was mind blowing. Like, to me, it just didn't make sense. But I imagine there's probably quite a number of those similar types of cases that have come across your plate since you've been in business.
Well, we work with a lot of construction clients, a lot of manufacturing. And when you look at some of these companies and the participation percentage, the employees that actually join the group health plan, we run across cases where they might have 30, 40, 50% of their people opting in, which is leaving, 50 or 60% of their folks who are not taking health coverage. And, a certain percentage of those might be getting coverage through a spouse, a certain percentage might still be on a parent's plan. But I think a lot of folks have just decided, you know what, I'm not going to pay the extra $150 a month to elect health insurance because I don't have $5,000 or $6,000 to satisfy a deductible or my out-of-pocket expenses if I even needed to use it. But, we had an employer who ultimately ended up being a huge champion for their people and participation because, open enrollment had come and gone. They had an employee, young, healthy, indestructible, who decided not to take health insurance. I think his gallbladder ruptured. He ended up getting rushed into surgery, being in the hospital for a few days. And to your point, I mean, this was now a six-figure liability for somebody that was making, $16, $18 an hour. That's a big hole to climb out of. And so what I tell people all the time is, look, you can afford the $30 per pay period coming out of your paycheck. If you can't afford your deductible or out of pocket, you can get on a payment plan.
This episode is sponsored by New Vision Projects, and everybody has heard the horror stories that happen. They have a friend of a friend or a neighbor that's been renovating for years on end, or they've been building a home and it just hasn't gone the way that it needed to go. Budgets are blown through the roof, timelines, forget about them. New Vision Projects has an incredibly strong track record for over 15 years of working with customers, serving them at the highest level. If you are considering building or renovating, check them out on Instagram at New Vision Projects or at newvisionprojects.com. Building the homes you want with the confidence you need. New Vision has you covered. Let them show you why they're different. Back to the show.
But you're not going to face bankruptcy from a six-figure hospital stay that you really have no chance of paying off in the future. And so, regardless of what the coverage is, it's affordable enough under law down here where, people really should be making sure they're protected and their family members are protected.
Yeah, it's a wild story. I remember I had my kidney. I went in, felt a lot of pain right in my stomach. I didn't know what it was, and I battled with it for about a day and a half. It was just like it kicked in. It was pretty solid. I had no idea what was happening, and I woke up in the middle of the night. I'm like, I was supposed to go to work the next day, and I checked myself into the ER. It was like 5 a.m. and I sat there, and I don't know. I was in so much pain over the next 6 or 7 hours before I could actually get to see somebody. Finally, they said, "Look, your appendix is about to burst." Right. And I was like, okay, well, what do we do? Like, I gotta, go to work. Am I like, are we doing this or what? They're like, no. Like we need you on an operating table right now. You don't have a choice. Like this thing is absolutely going to burst. If it does, like it's game over. It's going to be really difficult to deal with. And I remember going in and like, okay, well, luckily we caught it. Thank you for that. That's great. But my doctor, I'm going on a bit of a tangent. I understand that here, but my doctor walked in and I looked at him, and this guy was huge. Like he was very overweight. Like he's got his doctor's garb on, and I'm lying on this operating table, and his like the bottom part of his stomach is like hanging below his shirt, like his scrubs, right? And he's telling me about what I need to do with my appendix. I'm looking at him like, I don't know that you're the right guy to be giving me this, but there's not a lot of other options. So, and you're a doctor, so I guess I'm going to take your opinion. And he has this conversation with me. He says, okay, well, there's two ways of going about this, right? We can either go in and we do I forget what it is, but you do like the three little holes and we can take it out that way. I forget the medical term for it. And there's not going to be a scar, like there'd be very minimal scar. Or we can, and there's a 99% chance we're going to get it all. It shouldn't be a problem. Or we can, cut one incision. There will be a scar, but we can guarantee that we're going to be able to get it out. And I said, well, I'm young. Like, let's do the 3 dots thing. I don't want a big scar on the bottom part of my stomach. And he said, oh, well, I don't do that operation. So you only have the one choice. And I was like, okay, well, why did you even bring it up? He's like, I kind of like legally have to. But the reason he couldn't do it was because his fingers were so big. He was so fat that like his fingers were so big, he couldn't actually get in there to use the tools that he needed to do to perform the operation. So the only operation that he physically felt comfortable doing was this one incision. And because of his poor choices and getting, in bad eating habits and unhealthy habits, despite being a doctor for a living, like a professional medical person for a living, being as overweight as he was, I now have a scar where my appendix was. I mean, thankfully it didn't burst, and I'm very grateful for that. And it's, never been an issue, but I just looked at that and I was like, man, in your profession, if you're going to be doing something, right? If you're going to be preaching to everybody else about their life, and they should be healthy, and they should, watch out for doing all these things, that person should also probably be doing the thing. You know what I mean?
It would not be a good look if I was going out to employers telling them that their rates are going up 15 to 20% because they have an unhealthy employee population, and I was showing up as an unhealthy person. Yeah, it's a bad look.
But I feel for that kid that had his gallbladder, potentially erupted but it was at that point though where I was really thankful that had health insurance of some sort. Like, granted, like I said, it took a long time to get in to actually see the doctor. I didn't have a lot of options because I kind of get what I get, but if I didn't have that coverage, man, I would have been, like you said, bankruptcy, right? Like it's a huge thing. When you talk about massive student debt, right? These bills that you can accumulate if you let your health deteriorate. And I think that's one of the challenges too is people think that it's never going to happen to me, especially if you are young and healthy, right? Like, your chances of needing health insurance is maybe minimal because you're not as susceptible to things like, I don't know, diabetes or falling, because you have strength, you have endurance, like you're generally healthy, you have a strong heart, so you think it's less likely that you're going to get injured or get sick. And maybe that's the case, but fuck, I know that I had no indication that my appendix was going to go. Like, that stuff can just catch you from out of nowhere. And if you aren't properly prepared for that, if you aren't ready, then, like, man, that could have been life changing. And I'm glad that I did have the insurance that I had.
Yeah, it is a necessary financial planning tool at this point in time with the cost of healthcare. So,
yeah, absolutely, man. Casey, where can people find you if they want to connect? What's the best place? How do they reach out? Where do they find you? Where do they get involved with your rise and rock? Like, how do they connect with you, man?
Yeah, if you go to strunkgroup.com, that's our company website. All of our socials are tied right there. I have a monthly newsletter on LinkedIn. I call the Committed Advocate. Great way to stay in touch with what we're doing, and would love to hear from anybody.
Love it, man. All right, well, we'll put all those links definitely in the show notes. Casey, it was awesome chatting with you. Next time I'm out your way, we got to get a round of golf in. I mean, you're probably a way better golfer than I am, based on your experience, but we got to make that happen.
I'll host the round of golf, and we'll get out for a ruck and do it for sure. I appreciate you having me on, Brandon.
I love it. All right. And to all our listeners that are out there and still with us, until next time, appreciate you. I'm here rooting for you to win. Peace. Stay blessed. Rock and roll. Have a great day.